those of you joining us, thank you so much. You are watching a Bedford Skill Lab. So today we're going to be live with Joe Vargas from beehiiv. He's going to talk to us about setting up your newsletter engine with beehiiv's email builder, which is super cool. And we are Bedford, the modern institution for the creator economy. So for those of you joining us, if you're not part of our existing cohort, you should be part of our next cohort. We focus on 3 aspects here at Bedford. So we have a curriculum where you will learn a little bit about our systems for posting online. You get one-on-one coaching. And then the coolest part, in my humble opinion, is the community. So the feedback that you get from the peer network, but also from our creators in residence who are part of our network, part of our circle channel, who have built their businesses on being a creator and living it and giving you feedback. So super cool opportunity. This is a little preview of our 6-module curriculum. So hypothetically, you could complete our curriculum in 6 weeks if you really wanted to, but we recommend that you spread it out and also that you stick around with us for a year so that you can set up your winning strategies, so that you can make it last, so that you can build and recreate your systems over and over. And you have access to all of this for a year. So now that I've done my little spiel, our next cohort kicks off in September 2026. And yeah, I will stop sharing my screen and I will hide myself and I will pass this over to Joe.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you, Bedford, for having me today. Like I said, I'm Joe from beehiiv. Let me go ahead and kind of introduce myself a little bit before we dive in. I'm Joe. I lead the partner program over at beehiiv. I've worked with writers, publishers, consultancies, agencies to just make sure they're getting the most out of beehiiv and kind of helping evangelize the brand a little bit. Been in the email space for a little over 4 years. Actually, it's going to be 5 before too long. I'll have to remember that for the next bio. So email is kind of something I've built a bit of a niche around for myself and expertise. I live in Memphis with my wife and our 2 cats, Odin and Phoebe. Playing a band here called Wagoneer, new album, redesign. Go check it out. And I love cooking, photography, and a really good hike. Obligatory cat photo. This is Odin and Phoebe. They're very good cats, and they love tube treats. Now, today what we're going to get into is a quick intro to beehiiv for anyone who's unfamiliar with us. We're going to cover a little bit of why someone should consider starting a newsletter. We'll go over some of the most recent updates we've put out in our summer release. If you missed it, you missed a big one. That just dropped in July. And then we'll go into the platform for a live email builder demo, kind of show you around how the basics work. So beehiiv, in a nutshell, at its core is a platform for newsletter publication. We've launched a lot of other features and expand out to other types of content now, but really at the crux of it, the very beginning, we started out for the newsletters. We currently support over 150,000 creators and publishers. In Q1, we surpassed 10 billion newsletters sent. And to get started with beehiiv, there's no cost. We'll get into all of that a little bit later, but just wanted to give you a bit of a sense. So now I think, as I was kind of talking with the team at Bedford, one of the big questions we wanted to get into before how is why someone would start a newsletter. And I think there are really 2 buckets that make the most sense when I think about it. One being creators, and then the other being business owners. Now, there's going to be overlap between the 2, but I think some things that are distinct for each. Starting with creators, your knowledge is your superpower. And what a newsletter allows you to do, especially with consistency, with practice, and putting that out regularly, it allows you to develop public-facing expertise. You're no longer just knowledgeable, you are a trusted source for what you're speaking on. I think secondly, is building an audience that you actually own. Many other channels, you are at the whims of the algorithm, and it's not something that you own, it's not something that you control, it's not something you can take with you. They giveth and they taketh away the attention and the eyes. So having an actual newsletter with subscribers that you know you have their email is one of the few ways you can actually have ownership as a creator of your audience. Next, I think your archive of work becomes a broader body that people can find. So no matter where someone is finding you in your journey as a creator, they have this wonderful archive that they can go back to. And that allows for them to kind of develop a sense of trust at their own pace. I think when we're seeing, people coming up on TikToks or Reels or Instagram or anything like that, it moves, again, at the pace of the algorithm. We don't necessarily get the opportunity to deep dive into what someone is talking about, what they're saying, to really understand them when we first discover them. So having this whole body of work, again, builds that trust a little bit faster. And then with that ownership we touched on earlier, it's a different monetization channel, so that as a creator, your newsletter becomes its own business. Within beehiiv, we have different built-in monetization tools that allow you to do things like paid subscriptions for specific issues. I can do sponsorships and ad placements, and even sell digital products. So if you're a consultant, if you're doing lifestyle work, if you're doing something where you could, put out a guidebook, for example, these are things that you could sell and monetize through your newsletter. On the other side, business owners. I think more traditionally, business has been the broad send marketing email, but more and more business owners are moving over to a newsletter format, and I think there are a few key reasons for that. First, kind of in parallel with traditional marketing email, you're staying top of mind with clients, referrals, prospects, things of that nature. So having a good regular cadence to newsletter send is something that helps you stay top of mind, especially for businesses with longer sales funnels or more active outreach where decisions aren't made on the fly or spontaneously. Staying top of mind is incredibly important. For those similar businesses with longer sales cycles, your newsletter becomes a pool of expertise that you can, utilize yourself. If you have a broader sales team, it becomes an invaluable resource so that before you're even in a first sales call, anything of that nature, you can be showing them your expertise and demonstrating why you know what you're talking about and why they want to go into business with you. Over the years, email has and continues to be one of the best conversion channels in business, whether that's traditional marketing emails, newsletters, even going down to more e-commerce fundamentals, abandoned cart triggers, things of that nature. Email is the most direct method, so it inevitably does result in the best conversions. And then the last one, I think what a lot of people don't think of initially is that the list that you've built of emails is an asset and it grows in value, whether that's through the products or services that you're selling directly or through utilizing monetization features of the newsletter. The audience itself is its own asset and something you can grow with. Now, I don't have points on this, but I think it's also healthy to think of reasons not to start a newsletter or not to start a newsletter just yet. I think having your content strategy, what you want to say, what you want to talk about, what is your expertise well defined, is critical. If you're going in blind and you're kind of bouncing around from ideas or it's very vague, probably not ready to start a newsletter just yet. I also think if your sole motivation is to make money off of it, then you need to address that priority because it takes time and you can't just be putting out random AI generated nonsense and hoping people will engage with it. You need to have the foundation of content first, and it needs to be something that you're passionate about, something that you truly believe in. That's for both businesses or creators. I think with creators, obviously, it's more one-to-one. You have something you want to talk about. With businesses, it's becoming a trusted voice in your industry. So those are some things to consider before you jump in. As I mentioned, we recently had our summer release at beehiiv, and there are a few kind of big standout features that I think can fit for both business owners and creators alike. The first and the one that we'll lean into the most today is the new visual editor, WYSIWYG. That has been fun to say. It's what you see is what you get. We'll get into that a little bit more in depth. Additionally, we announced podcast hosting. So now you can do long-form podcasts. We take 0% rev share off of that, and that will automatically sync to Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We've also launched a native community platform. Think of this as your Discords, basically access for free and paid members so that they can talk with you as a creator, as a business, and it becomes a two-way channel of communication. Additionally, We launched Beehiiv Copilot as an AI agent built into the dashboard. It can help you with audience analysis, drafting content. Really, the sky's the limit. It just is something we'll continue to add on as we go. And then new monetization features as well. Some of the big ones that people have been asking us for a while, we have released, including metered paywalls. So basically, as someone hits different thresholds of content reading and engagement, you can hit them with the paywalls, paid trials to different content, group subscriptions as well. This is really good for if you're selling to organizations regularly, just a way so that one purchaser can manage a subscription for a whole group, and premium podcast feeds as well. Now, we'll get back to that one later. Now, we're going to go ahead and jump into the app. So let me go ahead and switch my screen real quick. There we go. So, welcome to Beehiiv. We'll go ahead and take a minute just to kind of familiarize ourselves with the dashboard a little bit before we jump into the newsletter. So right out of the gate, what we're going to surface is kind of your basic analytics, how many subscribers you have, open and click-through rates. We'll surface your last performance, subscriber growth. We'll also surface any active ad offers that you have, subscriber acquisition channels, and subscriber growth. Over on the left is where we're actually going to get into building different channels. We'll be mostly focusing on newsletters today, but within Beehiiv, you can also launch and design a website, as I mentioned earlier, launch your podcasts and communities as well. You can manage your audience, segment them into different groups, add them to different newsletter subscription lists. You can develop automations for welcome sequences or anniversary flows, all sorts of things like that. And then monetization channels live below that. One other thing to note, growth. We do also have boosts, which is effectively newsletter to newsletter referrals. So you can find people that are speaking about similar content and work with them to grow your audience in that manner. So, newsletters, what we're actually here for. I think one thing to start out with, and I think a good reminder as you're building out your first newsletter, is to focus initially on developing a really good template. A lot of publishers run into the issue of they're having to spend all of their time on the design each week, and that can be a real hindrance to the writing process. So up front, you want to start with a template. We give you some basic ones to start, but then as you build them, as you insert your brand styles, your fonts, your colors, all of that becomes saved and becomes part of your brand guide. So once you've built that out, it's not something you have to think of anymore. You can just go and focus on the content, do the writing, add the images that you want, and follow a structured template. Additionally, you can add guest authors as well. So if you're part of a broader team, this is maybe more for business or more publishing houses, that allows you to have featured writers come in as well. Now, we'll go ahead and go with a template to get started and move into here. This is the Beehiiv Newsletter Builder. I think the first thing to call out here is that everything in the builder is a block, whether that's images, text bodies, these are all blocks that you can work with. You can group and ungroup them if you're working collaboratively, comment, adjust your styles. You can also adjust visibility. So if you want to only show some parts of a newsletter to paid subscribers, you can still build that all in one place. Additionally, you can duplicate blocks that you're going to reuse a lot. So think about headers, footers, or if there's just content that you know is going to be recycled and it's easier just to plug in. One that I really like is on the standard, the weekly ick list that they include. It's just a really good block, and they go in and add what is giving them the ick for each issue, and I think that's a really fun way to use it. Additionally, these blocks are drag and drop, so if you need to play with placement, just grab it over there, slide it in place, and drop it where you want to. Straightforward like that. We can change out texts, fonts. We can also change colors for the post, for the canvas in the background. So, I don't know, I'm a really big fan of cars and bikes, as you might guess by what's behind me. So, I think it's 044. Hold on. I have to move too many screens around. Bear with me a second. So, we can even do that by hex code. So, 004224, I think it is. 002. It's fighting me. Hold on. I can get this. I promise this is user error. Let's see. We'll just copy and paste it. Make my life so much easier. Copy and paste. There we go. British Racing Green. Text doesn't necessarily show up great on that, so we'll go back to white, but easy way to kind of set those background colors. With these blocks, like I said, they can be just about anything. It can be images, text blocks, really anything you can imagine. So if I get into a space here where we want to add something, let me move that out of the way. If I want to add something in, do that simply with /. Yep, I'm in the wrong space. Bear with me, folks. Insert on group. There we go. There we go. And give me a /. There we go. That's where it came in. So with these blocks, we can place in various text formatting. So if we need headings, subheadings, back quotes, we can do columns. We can do content breaks here as well for nice clean lines and divides. If we go in, back in, add even more. We can even get really advanced. So we're adding buttons. We can add polls into these as well. So if you want to do questionnaires for your audience, if you're wanting to get content feedback, if you're wanting to see what they're engaging with the most, you can actually add, which is really nice instead of having to go in blind. You can also get really advanced for my coding nerds out there. You can also insert code blocks to build out your own modules in there. It's not limited to HTML either. We can do CPP, CSS, you can do Java, JSON, Ruby, really just about any you can imagine. You can go in and insert those code blocks. Additionally, in the wrong space, hold on. There we go. Like that, get that out of the way. And back on down. Really, the sky is the limit with what you can put in here as well. As I mentioned also, kind of conversion. So we want to put in paywall breaks so that if you want to read beyond this point, you can do so there. Recommendations, this is where you're actually boosting other people. Ad network placements can be put in here. We can also do a lot of embedding. So if you're a creator who's already got existing bodies of work in other platforms, you can embed that into your newsletter and direct people back to that content. So this could be something more manual from another site you're using. Audio can get really advanced with RSS feed, Instagram, YouTube posts, anything you can imagine. We do have AI writing features as well. I do always recommend to people use that as a drafting tool. Always the human element. Your insight is going to be the most valuable thing, but it is important to have that. So there's really a lot that you can dive into. What I like to recommend is start simple. Get your content outlined first and then move into the visuals. That's going to help you progress in the most organic, natural way. Now, once we're happy with the content that we've put in place, there are a few things we can do from here next. One, which I really like to call out, is previewing it. We can see how it's going to look both in the email display, on your website directly, and we can adjust for both desktop and mobile view. So you can ensure that what you've designed, yes, I'll accept the cookies. There are already too many cookies in there. So we can ensure that no matter where someone is looking at our newsletter, it is going to look really good. You can also, if you're doing different tiers to paid subscriptions, or if you even just want to look on the subscriber level, you can pick how a certain person would view it. This is really good if you're doing dynamic content. Maybe you're calling out, maybe your intros, "Hey, Joe, how are you doing?" If you want to call out on personal levels, you can do that as well. Audience is where we're going to set where this newsletter is actually going to show up. We can have it go to both email and our website, email only or website only. We can select from newsletter lists that we specifically do. This is similar to segments, but for publication specifically. We can adjust whether it's going to be available for free, paid, or specific subgroups of paid tiers, and that can be done both at the email and website level. There are also different exclusions we can put in place. So if you're not wanting to oversend to people, that's a good way to do that. From the email line, we can adjust the subject line and preview text. You can also A/B test your subject lines. Marketing people out there in the audience, I know this is 80% of it's a big thing that we want to make sure that we're doing. So we'll also be able to adjust the sample size, and we'll give you little tips on how that is working. Can also get more advanced, so custom read online URL. By default, we'll send this out to your web version if somebody clicks that in an email, but you can redirect that. You can also set it so that if you've embedded YouTube videos, by default, if somebody clicks on that, it would go to the YouTube page directly, but you can adjust that so that it goes to your site directly instead and allow people to watch the YouTube video there. Just a little way to have a bit more control over the traffic that you're putting out there. Web post settings, this is where we're going to adjust what the URL is, different thumbnails that we can put in place. We can do advanced email capture through gated or pop-ups. Comment section, we can also set that, whether it's available for everyone or paid subscribers only. This ties in very well with community. So you're having multiple places where you can communicate with your audience. And again, it provides that sense of community rather than just one-to-many conversation. SEO setting is really important, especially as AEO and GEO is taking off. Might get more into that in the Q&A if it pops up, but I think that's actually one thing I kind of left off that's important to consider for both creators and business owners is setting good SEO. Having newsletter content is one of the ways we're going to be able to get ahead of the big changes that Google made with AI search a few months ago. Long form content, community groups, these are what AI are scourging right now and building recommendations around. That's what they're searching. So the traditional SEO playbook isn't as powerful as it used to be. So having this wealth of a knowledgeable place where there can be community engagement is going to really set you up well in the GEO future. And then, of course, date settings, all those fun things. Last step, things that'll do, just review, make sure that you're happy with everything before posting. And then, of course, you can schedule your posts to go out. So if you're working ahead on a content schedule, maybe you get a good backlog of content together. You can set those all up to publish at specific days and times so you don't have to go back in and do that in the future. Just a little bit of a good way to manage your workflow. That was a lot, and I'm sure, as there are every time I demo anything, there are lots of questions probably. So I think at this point, I would love to open it up, see if we have any questions, and I'll go ahead and stop sharing for now so we can see what comes up.
I'm bringing myself back on stage for this one. Hello, guys. All right. I personally have a question. I was wondering if you could share a little bit more about monetization options that beehiiv has for creators, because I know that we have a couple people in our existing cohort who have been curious about Substack, for example, or other email platforms that are kind of similar. So I would love to hear a little bit about ways that they can use beehiiv to monetize, or if there's paywall options or things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have quite a few monetization options. And one thing I want to call out specifically with Substack that I think a key differentiator that's important to understand. Substack can be great for growing an audience, but similar to other social media platforms, you're borrowing that. You're playing into their algorithm and they are loaning you people's attention. Additionally, they hold that data. If you leave Substack in the future, maybe you develop something there, you don't have any ownership of that audience. So I think it's important to call out that if you're starting from scratch or if you have something exist, it's good to build that in a place where you maintain ownership. beehiiv doesn't hold your data hostage. You're free to export all of your subscriber data and leave at any point. So I think that's a good clarification with Substack specifically. Now, on monetization, there are a lot of options. You mentioned paywalls. That's an important one. Not only can we set paywalls around specific content, but you can do multiple tiers for that as well. So if you have, like I said, I managed a partner program here, bronze, silver, gold tiers for partners. You could put specific content for different levels of paid subscription. I've seen people do, a monthly newsletter for everybody that's available and free. And then maybe the next step up is going to be a weekly send with exclusive content. And then maybe at the gold tier is when you also allow people to introduce their community or get specific podcast episodes. So monetization isn't just tied to the email specifically or the newsletter. Additionally, we do have an in-house ad network. With that ad network, we do a 0% take rate on that. We don't take anything that they're paying you. We have our own distribution network where advertisers come to us and we will surface those each week with different opportunities that fit your publication. They'll have specific standards they're looking for around what type of audience, what type of content you're writing, and we will pair those up as best we can. We also have programmatic ads coming soon. This is something where if you just want to say, it's I always want to run an ad here, but I don't want to have to check it every time. You can set programmatic ads so that we'll fill that in for you. What else? Hold on, there's way more than that. Boost Network as well. As I mentioned, that's a way to kind of grow your subscriber list, but it can go the other way as well. So you can pay to have people endorse your newsletter and gain subscribers that way. You can also be on the receiving end of that, where you're going to recommend people to other newsletters and receive compensation for that. And I'd be ashamed not to mention it, you can also make money by boosting Beehive partner program. That's for affiliates, agencies. It's open to everyone. If you have a Beehive newsletter, you're already using it. If you love it, tell people about it. We share up to 60% rev share for the first year that everyone you bring in. So lots of opportunities there to earn. Hold on, there's one I almost forgot. Paid digital products. So that could be guides, that could be, I mean, really the sky's the limit there. Whatever you can creatively think of, whether it's art, digital guides, audiobooks, there's so many things that I've seen people do with it, and that's another way to monetize, all native in Beehive.
That's crazy. Having guides and digital products be native to Beehive and like within your email platform and your email builder is, you guys, like that's such a perk. Like I can't even talk about how many times I've worked with people who really want to move people off of social media, right? Move them through their funnel, get them to, capture their email like in some way. But and like essentially like with other platforms, you have to integrate and like have other ways that you have like those places, like all those things like go to the same place, right? So having those all in one place and having them be able to like purchase and like move through the funnel in that way, like through your newsletter, through your e-blast, like that's major. That's so much easier. So I'm looking in the chat. We have another question about connectors and integrations. Serena and Ian want to know if there are any connectors or integrations to ChatGPT or Claude or any other LLMs really.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have an MCP, so you can connect to whatever AI agent you prefer. We're constantly expanding the capabilities there. So, I mean, you can do content publishing, pull audience statistics. I mean, it really, too much for me to go into in the time that we have right now. But yeah, whatever your AI tool of choice is, you can connect through the Beehive MCP and utilize that.
Cool. Do you know of any ways that people like use Claude or ChatGPT along with Beehive to like maybe make their ideation or creation process easier?
Yeah, I think what's nice, especially once you kind of have a little bit of content backlog already, you've kind of done the paces, you've built some content out. One thing that I've seen people do that's really helpful is like, hey, look back at my last year of publications. What are some blind spots? What are some things that I've not talked about? What are trends that you're noticing in my writing that we could maybe plan for in the future? You can also use that kind of as a research assistant, like, hey, this is everything I write about. You know my vocabulary, you know my audience, you know what I am, what my expertise is. What are some relevant news stories that I could be looking out for next week's issues? What are different details that I could pull? I think it's incredibly powerful that as a research and drafting assistant. And then audience insights as well. We're going to surface those analytics, but for me personally, I can look at a dashboard all day and it means numbers are going in a direction. I'm not necessarily always the best at pulling like deep insights off of audience analytics. So having that to be like, hey, this issue seemed to dip substantially in click-through rate or views. What's different about this than past issues, and what should we maybe change to correct that behavior? Those are a few that come to mind, but there are people way more creative in the space of AI than I am, who I'm sure are going to come up with really fantastic things to do with it.
Yeah, that's super cool. So I have another question actually. I know I'm kind of like taking over from you guys. I wanted to know about like some of the other options like within Beehive that people have, because like I was just thinking back about the previous question that was asked about like and answered about like guides and things like that. I was just wondering if inside the Beehive platform there's also opportunities for things like e-blasts or landing pages for maybe some of our so for example, maybe there's some people here who have like an Instagram page or a TikTok account, but maybe they don't have like a website yet. And maybe they're like, don't really have an interest in building a website or anything like that. I know that there's probably some other, I know that there are some other email platforms, for example, that have like the option of like building a landing page where people like could put that as like a link in their bio. So I was just wondering if Beehive has any like options like that, that can like be used in creative ways with content creation or with social media.
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually do have a native website builder in the platform as well. So that can be used to populate your newsletter to a dedicated page. We also do integrate with, back up one step before I go to integrations. What I've heard from many people is our email builder is incredibly robust. So there's more ways we're trying to simplify the email builder design. Right now, we make it as simple as we can. We provide multiple templates, and you can change out coloring, formatting, things of that nature. But you can also get really deep into the weeds of manually editing the code. If you want to go incredibly deep and make a fully custom website on Beehiiv with landing pages, you can absolutely do that. What we're working on now is simplifying the process so that people can make really great custom looking websites without having to be code masters. You can already do quite a lot, but we're trying to adjust the experience a little bit so that it's more approachable for people who are brand new to website design. On the other side of that, if you have an existing website, maybe you're on, my mind is going blank now on some of the big website designs. Odds are we integrate with it. We do have quite a lot of integrations with those, as well as like e-commerce stores, if that's already something you're doing. So if you have those other channels, you could do that. And then link in bio specifically, we actually do have an integration and partnership with them as well. So it's really easy to set that up, have your link in bio link in your newsletter, and pull back to your Beehiiv site. So works both ways there.
Very cool. Okay, guys, for those of you still with us here, link in bio is huge if you don't have one already. We talk a lot about how a lot of many aspects of content creation should also be leading people off of your social media and eventually, having your trusted audience do the thing that you want them to do. Because at the end of the day, we are all marketing ourselves. Okay, sorry to get distracted and up on my soapbox here because we have some questions coming in the chat. So awesome. Jackie wants to know which parts of newsletters should be automated and which should stay clearly human. So this might be piggybacking off of our ChatGPT and Claude question from earlier.
Yeah. So I think, well, just to kind of clarify on some terminology there, automated to me can mean two things, right? We can be talking about ChatGPT, kind of pulling in that AI assistance, but there's also automated in terms of an email is sent out in a reactionary sense. So when somebody signs up for a new newsletter, it's not a bad idea to have an automated send to give them a welcome email. But that should probably be pretty human written, right? That's their first introduction to you in your newsletter, so you want to have that. Where I think some other examples for that, post visits, if they're commenting on one of your newsletters, you could set up an automation to respond to that. Anniversary flows are also a really nice thing. So when somebody has been a subscriber for 6 months or a year, sending them something as a thank you. Automation set up for if somebody becomes a paid subscriber is also a good one. And then there's some more traditional e-commerce stuff that I know we've all seen too much. Hey, you left this in your shopping cart. Are you sure you don't want it? And this other thing? And a 10% discount? So that's one element of automation. Now, on the AI side, I don't think any content we're putting out should ever be 100% AI. There always has to be, I think that's, especially this day and age, one of the fastest ways to erode trust in your audience. People can spot it from a mile away. So you can use it as a powerful drafting assistant, as a research assistant, but at the end of the day, the final version should really be coming from you. I also like to use it a lot as just a spell check assistant. That's my Achilles heel, and I'll go ahead and just volunteer myself on that one.
That's fair.
Yeah, I think remembering that it's a tool, but you are the content engine is a good way and a healthy way to think about it.
Love that. Jackie did come in the comments and say, that is what I meant, LOL, reactionary. Thank you, Joe. But I think both of those answers were super good and super helpful. We also have a question from Serena and Ian about, are there any other ways for the newsletter to be interactive with the audience other than the comments section?
Ooh, good question. So one that we touched on briefly is polls. This is basically an interactive questionnaire that you can put into there. So this could be something we're asking like, hey, we're bouncing around some content ideas. Which of these would be more interesting? We're thinking about launching a community. If this is something you're interested in, would you be willing to pay for it? You can kind of use community to, or polls as a bit of a litmus test for what your audience is really wanting. It's a little bit more anonymous as well, so I think polls, people are more likely to engage in those right away than just a comment section. Comments, I think people have different minds on comment sections. I'm never in them, but some people live in them. So it can be a little divisive there, but polls is another really good way to do that. I think some of the other ways are maybe a little less direct, and that's where we're, linking out to socials, we're linking out to other channels, and we're using the email, the newsletter, to guide people towards those other interactive communities, wherever else we want to communicate with them. But in the newsletter itself, comment sections, likes, People can share newsletter posts as well. And then polls are really the main powerhouse for kind of engagement there.
Nice. I really like the idea of using a poll in a newsletter, especially when it comes to like first starting one out, seeing what people like want to see in the future, whether something was helpful or not. I think that's a really good idea. And it kind of brings us to our next question because Laura had a question about, do you have any stats about newsletter best practices? For example, how regularly are the best ones sent? What's a typical unsubscribe rate? What's a decent conversion rate? Anything like that?
Totally. So there's not one set of standards that fits for newsletters as a super broad category. It's all content specific. If you're, a heavily journalistic newsletter with deep business insights, for instance, your regularity of posting is going to be different than someone who's working more on like lifestyle brand or something of that nature. So I think it's kind of a question you have to look inside in terms of regularity of sending. I think once a week is very healthy for most publications, especially starting out. I think if you try and do more than that, you're going to burn out. Like you don't need to be sending daily. Nobody has time for that. You don't have time for it. Your readers don't have time for it. Once a week is great, especially if you're writing slightly shorter form content. If you're doing very long form content, deep dives where you're getting deep into a subject matter, once a month is a great cadence for that as well. That's where I typically see more business or industry newsletters kind of cadencing their sends is once a month. As far as stats that you should be looking for, again, this is where it gets very kind of subject matter specific. For like an industry newsletter, something maybe about like the live event space, a 30 to 40% open rate, 20% click-through rate is incredibly healthy. But if it's more personal content, you can expect those stats to be a little bit higher if it's performing well. I've seen people in the lifestyle space averaging 70% open rate, 50% click-through rate. So it really, you don't hold yourself to the standard of newsletters as a broad category. Look at I know it is high. Look to other creators in your space. And I think another thing I should call out here for anyone on paid beehiiv subscriptions, we do also have a Slack community group. And it's a really good way to find other people who are, making content similar to you and use that community as a litmus test for, if you're on track, if what you're doing is comparable to what other people are seeing.
That's a great idea. You guys can also share, if you've started a newsletter, if you're kicking one off in our circle community, you could also share that information. I think that we're probably a little bit smaller of a community than the beehiiv one. So if you wanted to like do both, compare, that sort of thing, that is like a really great idea. Okay, we can probably have time for one last question. I have one selfishly, and it might just be like a quick yes or no. But do you have other integrations that people are using? So for example, like HubSpot, Slack integration. I don't know. Are there any other like really cool integrations that you would want to shout out?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have HubSpot integration, great for business, Salesforce as well. There are a few that I can't talk about yet that we'll be announcing soon. And actually, very soon, we're going to have kind of a more interactive integrations landing page where people can go and scan through all of the ones that they're coming. What I'll call out that's coming up, there's some really good ones coming out around e-commerce, and then I'll keep that one broadly. And then next week I can talk about this one. It's one of the, I'll keep it vague. It's one of the industry leading standards for website builders. We've got a really robust integration coming out with them shortly that we're excited to share.
Wait, if it's the one that I think it is, then that's a game changer. That is so cool.
It's probably the one you're thinking of.
Guys, then that's major news if that's coming out. Okay, so cool. All right, we have 2 minutes left. Let's see. Okay, what are some automations you've seen where users repurpose content from one channel to another?
Ooh, okay. So that's fun. I think, okay, let me think on this. I know I'm close to time, but I can think on this quickly. One really good use for that is actually in a welcome series. When people are first getting accustomed to your newsletter, you can use that email, embed other content that you've put out there that gives them a good flavor of what your newsletter content is going to be like, whether that's your YouTube podcast that you're hosting, anything like that, or even past issues of your newsletter. If you're like, hey, this is the welcome. Thank you so much for reading. Here's 5 of our, favorite newsletters that we've put out over the last year. That's a great place for it. I also think you can set up good anniversary ones. So what you can do is kind of base it off of when somebody became a subscriber And then, 3 months in or, 6 months in, you can be kind of dynamic about it. Set up, hey, before you joined, here are some cool insights that we shared here. And you can repurpose that older content. So there's lots of ways to do it. That's also maybe taking it even a step. One thing I love about polls is because there's that engagement, you can, set up a response. So if somebody is, I would love to see more content about X, and you already have a backlog of content about X, but maybe they didn't come in time to catch that when it was published, and be like, hey, we saw you're interested in this. Just so you know, we do actually already have this over here, and send it to them that way. So I think those are some cool ways you can kind of use automation to repurpose existing content.
Very cool. Okay, I'm super excited about Beehiiv. I feel like I've learned something new. I selfishly asked about the HubSpot integration for my own purposes, but I think that everybody here has learned something super awesome about Beehiiv. So Joe, thank you so much for joining us. This was awesome. And yeah, you guys, those of you in the chat, thank you for joining us. If you want to rewatch this, it will be on our YouTube channel tomorrow. And hopefully there'll be some clips coming out on our Instagram soon. So thank you guys so much. And Joe, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on. Thank you to that team at Bedford. Really appreciate the time today. And yeah, if you have questions about Beehiiv, don't hesitate to reach out. joe@beehiiv.com. I think I'm the last one getting that easy of an email address. So
those are the best. It's so nice to be grandfathered in.
Right. So good.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and we'll see you soon. Okay. Bye, guys.